The sky over Midtown was clear for half a second. Then it tore open. Peter Parker felt it before he understood it. His spider sense hit like a loud alarm in his skull. He swung hard, faster than he meant to, and landed on the side of a glass building with both hands and both feet. Up ahead, the air looked wrong. Not like smoke, not like heat, like a cut in reality. A black crack spread across the sky. Purple light leaked out around the edges. It made the clouds look bruised. People on the street stopped. Phones lifted. Someone laughed, like it was a prank. Then the crack widened, and something fell out. Not a person. A thing with too many arms and teeth that did not fit any animal Peter had ever seen. It hit the street, rolled, and stood up like it had done this 100 times. Then more fell. A wave of monsters slammed into the street. Cars crashed. Glass shattered. People screamed and ran. Peter's throat went dry. Okay. Not a drill. He leapt off the building, shot 2 web lines, and swung low over the street. He aimed for the biggest danger first, monsters that were close to the crowd. "Everybody move!" he shouted. "Go inside! Go away from the—" A monster lunged at a man frozen in the crosswalk. Peter snapped his wrist, webbed the monster's face, and yanked it sideways. It hit a taxi so hard the taxi rocked on its springs. Peter landed between the man and the monster. "Hi, I know this is scary, but I need you to run now. Like, run." The man stumbled, then bolted. Peter fought fast, but the street was too wide. Monsters spread out. One jumped onto a bus roof. Another crawled up a fire escape. Peter's spider sense kept firing in every direction. He was in the middle of it, and he hated that he could not be everywhere at once. Then something else happened. The crack in the sky pulsed. Not bigger. Different. Like it was responding to something. A human shape dropped out of the gate and landed in a low crouch on the asphalt. No armor, no cape, just dark clothes, a long coat, and a calm face. Peter blinked. Okay, that one is human, I think. The man stood. His eyes moved over the street like he was reading a map. A monster charged him. The man did not flinch. He lifted one hand and snapped his fingers. The shadows on the ground moved. They did not slide like normal darkness. They rose, thick and solid, like black smoke turning into bodies. A knight in dark armor stepped out first, holding a long sword. Behind it came another, and another. Peter froze for half a heartbeat, because it looked like an army was climbing out of the pavement. The knight moved in a blur, one clean slash. The monster's body split, then melted into ash like it had never been real. Peter's mouth opened. More shadow soldiers formed. A tall one with a blunt, heavy look. A lean one that moved like a hunter. A bug-like shape that made Peter's stomach tighten, because it reminded him of every nightmare he had ever had about giant insects. The man in the coat walked forward, slow and controlled, as if the street was his. His shadow army flowed around him. They did not bump into each other. They did not panic. They took positions. They fought like they had practiced. Monsters that had been about to reach civilians got cut off. Webbing stuck to monster arms, but shadows pinned them down. Cars that were about to get crushed got shoved aside by a soldier that looked too strong to be real. Peter swung in again, fighting, but now he was watching as much as he was punching. The man in the coat did not waste movement. He stepped, and he was suddenly behind a monster. He stabbed with a short blade that seemed to appear from nowhere. The monster turned to attack him. It never got the chance. A shadow knight, same one as before, blocked the hit with a shield. Another shadow soldier struck from the side. Peter had fought with teams before. Avengers-level teams. Even then, it had never looked this smooth. Peter landed on a streetlight pole and called out, "Hey, dark coat guy. Friendly? Please say friendly." The man looked at him. Just a glance. His face showed nothing strong. Not anger, not fear, not pride. He spoke, low enough that Peter almost did not hear him over the screams. "Get them out," the man said. Peter stared. Yes, that's what I'm doing. Okay, great. Teamwork. A monster bigger than the rest crawled out of the gate. It had a head like a hammer and arms like tree trunks. It roared, and the sound shook the nearby windows. Peter's spider sense screamed. He shot forward without thinking. The big monster swung at him. Peter bent backward in midair and flipped away, but the swing still hit a parked car and sent it flying. The car spun toward a group of people trapped behind a fallen sign. Peter's stomach dropped. Before he could move, a shadow soldier appeared under the car like it had teleported. It caught the car with both arms. The asphalt cracked under its feet. The car stopped dead. The people screamed anyway, but they were alive. The man in the coat walked toward the big monster. His coat fluttered once. That was it. The big monster charged him. The man stepped to the side. For a second, it looked too simple, like he was letting it pass. Then the man vanished and reappeared above the monster's back, as if the space between points had been cut out. He drove his blade down. The monster's roar turned into a choking sound. Shadows rose and grabbed it, holding it in place. The knight with the sword. Peter's eyes kept going back to that one. Cut once, hard. The monster collapsed. Ash. Gone. The gate above the street trembled. The purple edge flickered. Peter watched the crack start to close. Then, for one sharp instant, another crack appeared behind it. Larger. Deeper. Like a second mouth opening in the dark. A pressure hit the street. People looked up and cried out again, even though they did not understand why. Peter felt it too. Not spider sense this time. Something colder. The man in the coat looked up, and for the first time his calm face shifted. Not fear. Recognition. The second crack blinked shut, like an eye closing. The first gate finished closing. Silence fell in strange patches between car alarms and distant sirens. Peter stood on a bent streetlight, breathing hard, and stared at the man and his shadow army. "Okay," Peter whispered. "That was not normal even for us." Sirens arrived before answers did. The street filled with flashing red and blue. Police tried to set up barriers. People filmed everything. The videos would be everywhere in minutes. Peter stayed close, but not too close. He had learned that new powerful person could mean new problem. Then a familiar sound cut through the mess. A helicopter. It hovered above the buildings with smooth control, not like the news. This one moved like it had the city on a string. Peter saw the door open. He saw the man stepping out before he even heard the voice in his ear. "Kid," Nick Fury said, calm and sharp. "Do not do anything stupid." Peter's shoulders tensed. "Mr. Fury, hi. I was not planning to do." "Not you," Fury said. Peter followed Fury's gaze. The man in the coat stood in the middle of the wreckage like he belonged there. Shadows gathered behind him, quiet as statues now. They did not move unless he moved. Fury came down with agents who spread out in a half circle. They did not point guns at the man. Not yet. They pointed tools, scanners, cameras. Things that looked like cameras but were not. Peter noticed that Fury stayed behind his front line. That was Fury being Fury. A second figure arrived on the ground with a soft whoosh of repulsors. Iron Man landed like he owned the sidewalk. The faceplate opened, and Tony Stark looked around like the mess was an annoying homework problem. "Wow," Tony said. "I leave the city alone for 1 minute." Peter almost laughed. Almost. Tony's eyes locked onto the Shadow Army. "Okay, new rule. No more surprise demon armies before breakfast." Peter lifted a hand. "Hi, Mr. Stark. That guy, he helped. A lot." Tony kept his voice light, but his eyes were sharp. Yeah, that's usually how it starts. Another voice cut in, colder than the wind between buildings. You can't scan magic with a toaster. Dr. Strange stepped out from a shimmering doorway like he was stepping out of his own living room. His cloak floated behind him, calm and watchful. Peter felt his chest loosen a little. Strange being here meant at least one person understood weird. Strange looked at the man in the coat. His eyes narrowed. "That isn't sorcery," Strange said softly. "Not exactly." The man in the coat did not speak. He watched all of them, not like prey, not like targets, like he was measuring risk. Captain America arrived last, not loud, not flashy, just a man walking up with purpose, shield on, his arm, eyes scanning for people still in danger. Cap's gaze landed on the man and the shadows. He did not raise his shield. He did not smile either. He simply stopped at a safe distance and said, "You saved lives today." The man's eyes shifted to Cap. There was respect there, small but real. Cap kept going, steady. "Thank you. Now we need to talk." The man nodded once. It was the first time he showed agreement without being forced. Fury's voice stayed even. "Who are you?" The man paused. Peter waited, holding his breath. The man's mouth opened, and for a second Peter thought he would say something like, "I am the Knight," because that would fit the shadows and the coat and the drama. Instead, he said, "I don't know where I am." That was not the answer Fury wanted. Tony's faceplate slid shut with a quiet click. "Great. Mystery man with a murder army. I love my city." Cap's head turned slightly. "Tony." Tony lifted both hands in a fake apology. "I'm sorry. Aggressive darkness collection." "Better?" Strange stepped forward, one hand lifted, palm open, showing he was not attacking. "What do you remember?" Strange asked. The man's gaze flicked to Strange's hands, to the ring, to the cloak. He recognized the type, a fighter who uses rules other people do not see. He answered, careful. "A gate. A fight." Then, he looked at the city skyline. "This." Peter's spider sense did not flare. The man was not lying, at least not fully. Fury made a small gesture. Agents moved closer with a portable barrier device, but they did not activate it. Cap watched that, and did not like it. "No cages," Cap said quietly. Fury didn't look at him. "Not yet." Tony's scanners hummed. "Okay, Shadow Guy. Quick question. Are those things alive?" The man looked back at his soldiers. They stood perfectly still. Even the bug-like one held position like a guard dog waiting for a command. "They obey," he said. Tony blinked. That is the least comforting way to answer that question. Peter stepped forward a half step, trying to lower the heat. He really did save people. Like a lot of people. If he wanted to hurt us, he could have... Peter stopped himself because he realized how true that sounded. Tony finished it anyway. "Done it already?" "Yeah, exactly." Strange's eyes stayed on the shadows. "They are bound to you," he said. "Your power is a domain, a kingdom." The man's expression did not change, but something in his eyes hardened, like Strange had said a private thing out loud. Fury noticed. Fury always noticed. Cap made a choice. He stepped closer until he was in clear view. He lowered his shield slightly, not as a threat. "What should we call you?" Cap asked. The man's eyes met Cap's. Cap's face was honest. No tricks, no smile, just steady. For a moment, the man looked tired. Not sleepy. Tired like someone who has carried fights on his back for too long. Then he said, "Sung Jin-Woo." Peter repeated it under his breath to remember it. Sung Jin-Woo. Tony's voice softened, just a little. "Okay, Jin-Woo, I'm Tony." Jin-Woo nodded once, like names were tools, not greetings. Fury didn't relax. "You're coming with us." Peter's stomach clenched. Jin-Woo's shadows shifted slightly, like a single creature waking up. Cap raised a hand quickly. "Easy, we can do this right." Fury's eyes were flat. "Doing it right means we don't let an unknown god warlord walk free." Peter almost laughed at the phrase, but then he saw Jin-Woo's face. He did not look angry. He looked like he was deciding how much he cared about these people's rules. Strange stepped in before the air could snap. "We need to understand what happened," Strange said. "Where did the gate come from? Why did it open here? And why did it react when it closed?" Tony tilted his head. "It reacted?" Strange's eyes narrowed. Something looked through it. Silence hit harder than the sirens. Cap spoke first. "Jin-Woo, are there more gates?" Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the dark spot in the sky where the crack had been. "Yes," he said. Peter felt his stomach sink. "Like, a lot?" Jin-Woo did not answer right away. When he did, his voice was calm. "Enough." Fury gave a sharp nod. "Then you're definitely coming with us." Jin-Woo looked at the agents, at the armor, at the weapons, at the fear hiding under trained faces. Then he looked at Peter again. Peter did not know why, but it felt like a test. Peter lifted both hands. "I vote we do the talking plan. Talking is good. Also, please don't fight on this street. My landlord is already mad at me for reasons." Tony muttered. "Kid, your landlord should be mad at the whole city." Jin-Woo's lips twitched. It was not quite a smile, but it was close enough that Peter noticed. "I will come," Jin-Woo said. Fury's posture eased by 1%. "Smart," Jin-Woo added, "but I will not be restrained." That 1% snapped back to 0. Tony sighed. "So that's the line." Cap's voice stayed steady. "We'll work it out." Strange opened a portal. "Sanctum," he said. "We start there." Jin-Woo watched the orange ring spin, watched the doorway appear, and stepped through as if portals were just doors. His shadows followed. Not all of them. Peter's eyes widened as he noticed 2 shadow soldiers stayed behind, melting into the alley darkness like they were becoming part of the city. Tony noticed it too. "Oh, come on." Fury's jaw tightened. "He left scouts." Cap didn't look away from the portal. "Or he's making sure no one gets hurt." Fury's voice was low. "Both can be true." Peter swallowed and followed them into the sanctum, feeling like he had just walked into a new kind of storm. The sanctum was warm inside, but the air still felt tense. Jin-Woo stood in the center of the room, calm, while Strange moved in a slow circle around him. Strange held small tools that glowed. Rings of light formed, then vanished. A mirror showed Jin-Woo's shape, then blurred, as if it could not decide what he was. Tony paced, letting his suit scan everything. Data floated on his HUD. Peter sat on the edge of a chair like he might have to jump at any second. He tried to look relaxed. He failed. Cap stood near the doorway, arms crossed, watching everyone's hands more than their faces. Fury stayed in a corner, quiet, with his agents outside. He did not like magic rooms. It was too hard to control. Strange spoke first. "Your energy is not demonic," he said. "Not in the usual sense. It isn't like Dormammu." At the name, Jin-Woo's eyes sharpened. "Dormammu," he repeated, tasting it. Tony pointed. "He knows that?" Strange frowned. He recognized the feeling when the gate flickered. "That's what I'm hearing." Tony's voice held forced humor. "Fantastic. My new friend is here to start a turf war with the universe's worst neighbor." Peter raised a hand. "Wait, Dormammu is that big fireface guy, right? The one we do not want calling." Strange gave him a look that said, "Yes, and also please, don't say it louder." Cap spoke to Jin-Woo again. "What are those gates in your world?" Jin-Woo's gaze lowered slightly, like he was looking at something only he could see. Peter noticed the pause. like Jin-Woo was reading text in the air. Jin-Woo answered in short pieces. Doors. They open. Monsters come out. Hunters go in. If you don't clear it, the door breaks wider. Tony stopped pacing. Okay, that's actually clear. Thank you. Strange asked, And you're a hunter? Jin-Woo nodded. Tony's eyes narrowed. And your army? Jin-Woo looked toward the floor. A shadow moved gently, like water. They are mine, he said. Peter blurted. Okay, but how? Like, did you hire them? Is there a contract? Are they interns? Tony pointed at Peter. See? Great question. Labor laws. Also, are they paid? Cap gave Tony a warning look. Tony shrugged. I'm serious. If this is a living army, we need to know what rules apply. Strange exhaled slowly. Tony. Jin-Woo's face stayed calm, but he looked at Peter like Peter had asked something real, not a joke. They are shadows, Jin-Woo said. They don't eat. They don't sleep. They don't get paid, Peter whispered. So no pizza night. Tony's shoulders dropped in a sad, dramatic way. Tragic. That was the first time the tension cracked just a bit. Then the room shook, not like an earthquake, like the air itself pulled tight. Strange's head snapped toward the window. There. Outside, far away, a small black crack opened in the sky for a second, then vanished. Cap's face hardened. Another gate. Fury's voice was cold. How many? Jin-Woo answered without looking away from the window. Not yet many, he said, but it will become many. Tony's tone shifted from jokes to work. Can we track them? Strange's hands moved, drawing a quick circle. I can feel them, he said, like splinters in reality. Tony nodded. Okay. I can build a sensor net that reads your splinters and my energy signals, and whatever his shadow wavelength is. Fury cut in. And while you build, we keep him contained. Jin-Woo turned his head slightly. Contained, he repeated. Peter's spider sense tickled, not screaming, but warning. Cap stepped forward. Jin-Woo, he said, we aren't your enemies, but we protect our world. We need trust. Jin-Woo's eyes held Cap's. Trust is earned, Jin-Woo said. Cap nodded. Agreed. Strange spoke, choosing careful words. If gates are opening here, then something is either calling you or following you. Jin-Woo's jaw tightened. The calm cracked for half a second. That was enough for Peter to realize something important. Jin-Woo was not just powerful. He was used to being hunted. Tony's suit projected a map of the city. Okay, Tony said. First step, we find the weak points. We stop civilians from dying. Then we figure out what the crack in the sky wanted. Fury looked at Jin-Woo. And you follow orders. Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat. No. Fury's hand moved slightly. A signal. Agents outside shifted. Tools hummed. Strange raised a hand. Stop, he said. Not here. Not like this. Cap's tone turned sharp. Fury. Fury didn't blink. I'm not risking the planet because you want to believe in strangers. Cap's eyes narrowed. He saved people while you were still on the helicopter. Peter squeezed his hands together. He hated this part, when adults with power turned everything into a test of control. Jin-Woo watched them argue like he was watching weather. Then he spoke, and the room went quiet. I will help stop gates, Jin-Woo said, because people will die if I don't. Fury's expression did not change. And after? Jin-Woo's answer was simple. After, I will decide what I do. Tony muttered, That's not reassuring. Jin-Woo looked at Tony. You also decide what you do, he said. Tony blinked, then smiled a little, like he had been punched in a way he respected. Fair. Strange stepped closer to Jin-Woo, lowering his voice. If Dormammu is aware of you, Strange said, he will test you, and he will not test you with strength alone. Jin-Woo's eyes were steady. "I'm not new to tests," he said. Peter swallowed. "Okay," he said quickly. "So, team plan. We stop gates. We keep people safe. And we do it without fighting each other?" Tony pointed at Peter. "Kid is right. Add one more thing. Nobody touches my city without paying a fee." Cap gave Tony a look. Tony shrugged. "Metaphor, kind of." Strange opened another portal. "First small gate signature," he said, "near the river. We start there. Together." Jin-Woo moved toward the portal. Then he stopped and looked back at Peter. Peter pointed at himself. "Me? You want me to come?" "Because I can, but I'm not sure I'm the best." Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. "You move fast," he said. "You save people." Peter blinked. His chest felt tight in a different way. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I do." Cap clapped Peter lightly on the shoulder. "Let's go," Cap said. Fury didn't stop them, but his one eye stayed on Jin-Woo like it was a trigger waiting to be pulled. They stepped through the portal into cold night air by the river. The water looked black under the streetlights, and above the far end of the pier, a small crack opened in the air. A gate. Jin-Woo's shadow stretched long across the concrete, and his soldiers rose from it without sound. Peter watched them line up, then saw one of them, Baru, the bug-like one, turn its head and lift a hand the way Spider-Man had waved earlier. It held the wave too long. Peter almost laughed. Almost. Then the gate widened, and the first monster crawled out. And the night began again. The first gate was small, but it was hungry. Monsters poured out in bursts, as if the opening was trying to cough them into the world as fast as it could. They were not as big as the hammer-headed boss from earlier, but there were more of them, and they moved like they knew where to run. Jin-Woo stepped forward, and the shadows moved first. 2 soldiers rushed the gate mouth and formed a wall. Others leapt onto shipping crates and rooftops, cutting off escape routes. Peter swung overhead, pulling civilians away from the pier and toward the street. He webbed a monster's legs and slammed it into the ground. "Okay," Peter muttered. "This is like whack-a-mole, but the moles have teeth." Cap stayed near the edge of the crowd, directing people with firm hands and a loud voice. "Move back! Don't stop! Keep going!" Strange stood close to the gate, hands weaving glowing circles. He watched the edges, feeling for the shape of the magic. Tony hovered above, firing careful repulsor shots that pushed monsters away from civilians without blowing up the whole pier. It should have been a clean win. It was, until Tony's sensor screamed. Tony said. "Guys, we have multiple spikes. Like, a lot." Strange's eyes narrowed. "No," Strange whispered. "That's too fast." Peter felt his spider sense flare again, sharp and wide, like the whole city had become dangerous. Above them, far away, a second crack appeared in the sky, then a third, then a fourth, not all in one place, across the city. Tony's hood filled with red marks like a rash spreading. "Oh, come on," Tony said. "That is not fair." Cap's face turned hard. "How many?" Tony swallowed. "At least 3 major, maybe more small ones." Strange's voice went tight. "It's a chain reaction. Someone is forcing it." Jin-Woo's gaze lifted to the skyline, then down again. He was not shocked. He looked like someone who had seen this pattern before. "Gates breed," Jin-Woo said. Peter's throat tightened. "That is a sentence I hate." Tony pointed toward 2 red marks on his map. "Okay, we split. Cap, take the smaller one near the bridge. I'll handle the one in the financial district with drones." Strange's eyes locked onto the largest mark, pulsing like a wound. "And that one," Strange said, "is different." Jin-Woo was already moving. "I will take the largest," he said. Fury's voice came over Tony's comms, clipped and angry. "Negative. You stay where I can see you. Cap snapped. Fury, not now. Jin-Woo didn't answer Fury. He didn't have to. He stepped into the shadow at his feet and vanished. Peter's eyes widened. Did he just teleport? Strange cursed under his breath and opened a portal. He's going to the big one, Strange said. And if it's what I think it is, he shouldn't go alone. Tony's suit turned slightly. You're going after him. Strange's jaw tightened. Yes. Tony hesitated for half a second, then nodded. Fine. Go. I'll keep the city from turning into a monster buffet. Cap pointed at Peter. You're with me, Cap said. Peter swallowed. Sure, yeah. Great. Love field trips. Strange stepped through his portal. The air snapped shut behind him. Strange came out near a massive public space, already half cleared by emergency crews. The ground shook under his boots. In the center of the area, the largest gate hung in the air like a vertical scar. Its edges bled purple-black light. The space around it warped. Streetlights flickered like they were drowning. Strange felt it immediately. This was not just a gate. This was a doorway pushing on the rules of the world. Jin-Woo stood alone in front of it, coat moving slightly in the wind. His shadow army gathered behind him in thick ranks, spreading across the ground like an ink spill. Strange's cloak tugged at him like it was nervous. Jin-Woo, Strange called. Jin-Woo didn't look back. You came, he said. Strange stepped beside him, keeping his eyes on the gate. I had to, he said. This doesn't feel like your gates. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. It feels like something else is touching it. Strange swallowed. Yes. A sound came from the gate, not a roar, a deep, slow breath, as if a giant thing on the other side had leaned close. Then the gate widened. A shape stepped through. It was tall and thin, but it carried weight like a mountain. Its body looked like dark stone with glowing cracks inside. Purple light leaked from its chest and eyes. Its hands were long, fingers too sharp. It didn't walk like a monster. It walked like a messenger who knows no one here can stop it. Strange felt the dark, dimension on it, like smoke clinging to clothes. Not Dormammu himself. A probe, a herald, a finger reaching in. The thing spoke, and its voice sounded like two voices at once. King, it said, looking directly at Jin-Woo. Strange's skin prickled. It knows you, Strange whispered. Jin-Woo's face stayed calm, but his eyes sharpened hard. I am not your king, he said. The herald tilted its head. Another kingdom moves, it said, in a realm that is not yours. Strange lifted his hands, orange light forming circles. You don't get to claim this world, Strange said. The herald did not even glance at Strange. It raised one hand toward Jin-Woo, palm open, like an offer. Return, it said, or be opened. Jin-Woo's voice was flat. I didn't come by choice. The herald's eyes glowed brighter. Then you are stolen property. Strange's mouth tightened. That's it, he said. No more talking. He cast a binding spell, bright rings shooting toward the herald's arms. The rings hit, then cracked like glass. Strange's eyes widened. That should not have been so easy to break. The herald lifted its hand, and the air twisted. The world around the gate bent inward, like gravity had chosen a new center. Strange almost fell forward. His cloak yanked him back. Jin-Woo didn't move. His shadow behind him thickened. The ground under his feet darkened, spreading outward in a smooth circle. The air pressure eased. Strange blinked. Jin-Woo's darkness was pushing back, like a second set of rules. You can anchor space, Strange realized. He stared at Jin-Woo with a new kind of concern. That's not just strength, that's a realm. Jin-Woo didn't answer. He stepped forward. His shadow surged with him, forming a wave. The herald's mouth opened, and purple light poured out like smoke that burned. Shadow soldiers hit the wave and got pushed back, their forms flickering, but they did not vanish. They reformed. They held. Jin-Woo moved through them like a commander walking through his own line. He vanished and reappeared behind the herald, blade already mid-swing. The herald twisted without turning, like its body didn't need normal movement. Jin-Woo's blade struck its side. The cut landed. Purple light spilled out. Strange's eyes widened again. Most things didn't bleed in the dark dimension. Not like that. The herald stepped away, more annoyed than hurt. It lifted one finger and tapped the air. A ring of dark force slammed Jin-Woo into the ground. Concrete cracked. Dust burst upward. Strange flinched. Then Jin-Woo rose from the crater, calm, brushing dust from his coat, like he had fallen into a chair, not through a street. He looked up at the herald. His eyes were colder now. He spoke one word. Igris. The Shadow Knight appeared in front of him like a loyal wall. Sword raised. Jin-Woo's shadows rose higher, thickening, widening. The herald watched, and for the first time its voice changed slightly. It sounded interested. Yes, it said. Show me. The battle turned violent and fast. Igris clashed with the herald's dark force, sword strikes hitting like thunder. Shadow soldiers swarmed, climbing, grabbing, pulling the herald down like a tide trying to swallow a rock. The herald lifted both hands and released a pulse of purple-black energy. Half the shadows flickered. Strange's heart jumped. But they didn't die. They fell back, then stood again, as if death was an inconvenience, not an end. Jin-Woo moved again, appearing above the herald's head, driving his blade down. The herald caught the blade between two fingers. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. The herald leaned close, face inches from Jin-Woo's. Not enough, it said. Then it twisted its wrist. Space folded. Jin-Woo's body jerked sideways like the ground had shifted under him. Strange reacted instantly, casting a stabilizing spell to stop the fold from spreading into the city. Orange light laced through the air like a net. The fold slowed. Strange gritted his teeth. "You're not tearing my world open," he hissed. The herald finally looked at Strange. It smiled. "You protect your home," it said. "Good." Then it snapped its fingers. The gate behind it pulsed. The space around Strange's net shuddered, and Strange felt something big press against the other side. Not the herald. Something else. Dormammu's attention, like a shadow moving behind a curtain. Strange's throat went dry. Jin-Woo felt it too. His gaze flicked toward the gate, and the calm inside him tightened into focus. He took one step back and lifted his hand. Shadows rose, forming a thick wall between the gate and the city. Strange watched, stunned, as Jin-Woo's darkness acted like a seal. Not perfect, but real. The herald's eyes widened slightly. "Ah," it said. "A lock." Jin-Woo's voice was cold. "I'm not your tool." The herald spread its arms. "Then be my rival," it said. It lunged. Jin-Woo met it head-on. This time he didn't just slash, he commanded. Shadows pinned the herald's legs. Igris drove in from the left. Baru struck from the right, screaming something that sounded like a cheer, which would have been funny if the situation wasn't terrifying. Jin-Woo struck straight through the herald's chest. The blade went in. Purple light exploded out. The herald staggered. Strange felt the gate wobble. For 1 second, Strange thought, he did it. He killed it. Then the herald grabbed Jin-Woo's wrist with a hand that should not have been able to move. It leaned close and whispered something in a language Strange felt more than heard. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. The herald let go and stepped backward into the gate. It didn't fall. It retreated. The gate began to close behind it, but not before the herald lifted one hand and pressed 2 fingers to its own eyes. Then it pointed at Jin-Woo. A mark flashed in the air. A thin ring of purple-black light. It burned onto Jin-Woo's shadow like a brand. Strange's stomach dropped. "It tagged you," Strange said. Jin-Woo's jaw tightened. He stared at the fading gate, eyes hard. The gate snapped shut. The pressure in the air eased, but it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a test had ended and a plan had begun. Sirens echoed closer. Strange looked around and saw cameras on rooftops, people filming from behind barriers, the whole city watching shadows standing in ranks around a cratered battlefield. Tony's voice came over comms, tense. "Strange, report." Strange took a breath. "We stopped the main gate," he said. But it wasn't a normal gate. Tony's voice went quiet. "How bad?" Strange looked at Jin-Woo's shadow, at the fresh mark pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. He answered honestly. "Bad enough that someone important noticed." Jin-Woo turned away from the empty sky and looked toward the city. His shadow soldier stood still, waiting. He spoke softly, more to himself than anyone else. "So," he said, "they found me." And in the distance, across the skyline, small cracks flickered for half-seconds, like eyes blinking open and shut. Not many. Not yet. But enough. The next morning, New York looked normal on the surface. Sunlight hit the glass towers. People walked to work. Hot dog carts opened. Cars honked like always. But the city's screens told a different story. On a huge billboard in Times Square, a looping video played. A dark crack in the sky, monsters falling like rain, a quiet man stepping forward, shadows rising from the street like an army. Someone had added a big caption over the clip. "Shadow King saves NYC." Peter Parker stood near the edge of the crowd, hood up, backpack on, trying to look like a normal teenager watching a normal thing. He failed at both. He watched himself swing across the screen for half a second, then watched the shadow soldiers march into frame. People around him talked fast. Those things were like soldiers. My cousin said the guy didn't even blink. Is he an alien? My mom says he's a demon. A man in a suit shook his head. No way he's a hero. Heroes don't bring armies. Peter's stomach tightened. He wanted to argue. He wanted to say, he saved people. He wanted to say, I saw it. But he couldn't. Not without drawing eyes. Not without risking his own secret. So he stayed quiet and listened. Two little kids pretended to be shadow soldiers, standing stiff with their arms crossed. One kid tried to copy a cool hero pose, chin up, arms wide. The other kid copied it too, then fell over laughing. Peter almost smiled. Then his phone buzzed. A single message from an unknown number. Stay available. Gates can reopen. Peter sighed. Yeah. No pressure. He stuffed the phone away and slipped out of the crowd. His mind kept going back to one moment from last night. The way Dr. Strange's face had tightened when he felt that big pressure behind the gate. The way Jin-Woo had looked up like he recognized the feeling. And the way that purple-black mark had burned onto Jin-Woo's shadow like a brand. Peter didn't know what it meant, but he knew one thing. Something had seen Jin-Woo, and now it would not look away. Nick Fury hated noise. He hated crowds. He hated cameras. He hated people making jokes about things that could end the world. He sat in a secure room with no windows, watching the same footage everyone else watched. Only his footage had extra layers, heat maps, energy readings, agent body cam angles. On one screen, Jin-Woo stood in front of the gate. On another, shadow soldiers rose up from the pavement. Fury didn't care what they looked like. He cared what they did. He leaned forward as a tech analyst replayed the moment Jin-Woo vanished into shadow and appeared somewhere else. He moved without a visible device, the analyst said. Not tech. We think it's tied to his shadow field. Fury's one eye narrowed. Meaning? meaning he can relocate instantly if there's darkness. Which means, Fury said, there is no cell on Earth that can hold him if he doesn't want to be held. Across the room, Tony Stark stood with his arms crossed, looking annoyed and awake at the same time. Correct, Tony said. So maybe we try not making him want to leave. Fury didn't look at him. You're not in charge of this. Tony's smile was thin. I'm not in charge of the city either, but I still pay for half of it. Captain America stood near the door, calm but tense. He had that look Fury had seen before, the look that meant Steve was holding himself back on purpose. Steve spoke carefully. We aren't talking about a criminal. He helped. He chose to help. Fury finally turned his head. And if he chooses something else tomorrow? Steve didn't blink. Then we respond tomorrow. Not by treating him like an enemy today. Fury's jaw tightened. We don't get a lot of tomorrows if we gamble wrong. Doctor Strange was there too, arms folded, eyes tired. He looked like he had not slept. Strange spoke, voice low. The bigger issue is not whether he wants to hurt us. The bigger issue is what wants him. Fury's eye narrowed. Name it. Strange hesitated, just a beat. That alone made the room colder. There was dark dimension pressure, Strange said. Not Dormammu himself, but close enough that I felt his attention, like a finger tapping on a door. Tony's eyebrows rose behind tinted glasses. That's comforting, in the way a shark fin is comforting. A general on a secure video call cut in, angry. Are you telling me you invited something like that into our world? Steve's head turned. No one invited it. We're dealing with it. The general snapped, Then contain the source! Fury's mouth didn't move much when he answered. We're working on it. He ended the call and looked around. Here's the plan, Fury said. We build a response grid. We track every gate signature. We keep Jin-Woo under observation, 24/7. Steve stepped forward. Observation is one thing. Control is another. Fury stared at him. We control what we can, Rogers. Tony made a small sound like he was trying not to laugh. Nick, you can't control gravity either, but you still fly in a suit. Maybe we try working with gravity instead of arresting it. Fury's gaze moved back to the screen showing Jin-Woo's face. Calm, blank, unreadable. People like him, Fury said. Don't stay calm forever. Strange's voice softened slightly. He's calm because he's used to war. That landed in the room like a weight. Steve's jaw clenched. Then treating him like a weapon will only prove his worst fears. Fury didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. He pressed a button. Another screen lit up with a file. No name, no birth record, no fingerprints in any database, no passport. Nothing. Just footage. Just a shadow army. Just a moving target. Fury spoke quietly. If we do nothing, we'll regret it. If we overreach, we'll regret it. So we do the middle. Tony shook his head. Your middle still looks like a cage with better manners. Fury's eye flicked to Tony. Build your sensors. Tony's smile returned, sharp and tired. Already started. Steve took a slow breath. And let me talk to him, Steve said. Not as a commander, as a person. Fury's face didn't change, but his voice lowered. You can try, Fury said. Just don't forget what he is. Steve's answer was immediate. A person. Fury didn't argue. He didn't agree either. Tony Stark worked best when he was annoyed. He set up temporary lab space in a secure Avengers facility. He stacked monitors, cables, drones, and scanners like he was building a wall out of science. He had one main goal: track gate energy before it became a disaster. His second goal, one he didn't say out loud, was to understand the quiet man who made shadows obey. Tony watched shadow residue under a microscope. He watched it twist away from light like it was alive. He watched it cling to metal, then vanish like it had never existed. This is either magic, Tony said to himself, or the universe's weirdest physics prank. A soft sound came from the doorway. Tony looked up. 2 shadow soldiers stood there like they had been assigned as guards. They didn't breathe. They didn't blink. They didn't make a sound. Tony's suit sensors didn't like them. His AI kept flagging them as unknown threat, which was a very polite way of saying, "No idea what this is, boss." Tony raised both hands. "Okay. Hi, I'm not going to, I don't know, offer you coffee." The shadows did not move. Tony sighed. "Right. No coffee." He tried a different approach. He pulled out a small device, like a badge printer, and printed 2 simple ID cards. He walked forward and held one out like a peace offering. "Here," Tony said. "You can be official. Security. Benefits include standing. Lots of standing." One shadow soldier tilted its head just slightly, like it was listening. Tony's eyebrows rose. "Oh, you can understand me?" He held out the badge again. The shadow soldier reached out and took it. Then it lifted the badge up to its face, as if trying to smell it. Tony watched, equal parts amused and nervous. "Okay, that's not how badges work, but I respect the effort." The second shadow soldier copied the first one perfectly, took the badge, held it up. Same motion. Tony exhaled. "You guys are like a photocopier with swords." The door opened again. Jin-Woo stepped in quietly, like he had always been there. He looked at the badge in the shadow soldier's hand. "What is that?" Jin-Woo asked. Tony shrugged. "It's an ID. It's how humans pretend paperwork matters more than power." Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to the lab. The machines, the screens, the data. Tony watched Jin-Woo watching everything. He didn't have the curious face of Peter Parker. He didn't have Steve's open honesty. He didn't have Fury's constant suspicion. He had a look Tony recognized from battlefields, a look that said, "Where are the exits? Where are the traps? What's the worst-case plan?" Tony decided to be direct. "We tracked the energy from the big gate," Tony said. "There's a pattern, like a pulse, like something is trying to set up a schedule." Jin-Woo's gaze didn't change. "Gates do that," he said. Tony nodded. "Cool. Hate that. But cool." Jin-Woo's eyes drifted for a second, unfocused, like he was reading something invisible. Tony noticed. He tried not to stare. "What's that?" Tony asked. Jin-Woo looked at him. "Nothing you can see," he said. Tony's mouth twisted. "Love mysteries." Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. "In my world, I could see messages. Rules." Tony's face tightened. "Rules." Jin-Woo nodded once. "A system." Tony didn't joke this time. "Is it controlling you?" Jin-Woo's eyes sharpened slightly. "No," he said. "It helped me survive. It doesn't decide what I do." Tony held his gaze. "Good answer. But I'll still verify." Jin-Woo didn't react like a man insulted. He reacted like a man who expected it. Tony tapped a screen. "Also, you've got a mark. Strange told me. It's not subtle." Jin-Woo's eyes flicked down to his shadow. The mark wasn't always visible, but when the light hit right, it pulsed faintly like a bruise. "It's a tracker," Jin-Woo said. Tony's jaw tightened. "Great." One of the shadow soldiers behind Jin-Woo lifted its arms slightly, then crossed them the way Tony stood when he was annoyed. Tony stared. "Did he just copy me?" Jin-Woo glanced back. The shadow soldier froze, then slowly uncrossed its arms like it had done something wrong. Jin-Woo's voice stayed flat, but there was a tiny edge in it. "They learn," he said. Tony couldn't help it. He smirked. "Tell them to learn how to file taxes. That would terrify the whole planet." Jin-Woo didn't respond to the joke, but his eyes flicked briefly to the badge again, like he understood the idea. Humans liked symbols. Tony leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Listen," Tony said. "Fury is going to try to box you in. He does that to everything that scares him. Don't take it personal." Jin-Woo's gaze stayed on Tony. "I don't," he said. Tony hesitated. "And Steve is going to try to trust you first." Jin-Woo's voice was quiet. "I noticed." Tony nodded. "And Strange. Strange is trying to stop the universe from turning inside out." Jin-Woo's eyes moved to the windows. "That's wise." Tony's face sobered. "So here's my deal. I build sensors. You stop gates. We keep civilians alive. And we figure out why you got dropped here." Jin-Woo's answer was simple. "Agreed." Tony exhaled. He didn't realize he'd been holding his breath. Then one of the shadow soldiers raised its hand slowly, like a student in class. Tony blinked. "Yes?" The shadow soldier pointed at Tony's glowing arc reactor through the shirt. Then it pointed at itself. Then it made a small circle gesture in the air, like it was asking, "Can I have one?" Tony stared, then burst out laughing once, surprised. "No," Tony said, still laughing. "Absolutely not. You cannot have a chest light. We are not starting that trend." The shadow soldier lowered its hand slowly, like it had been rejected from a club. Jin-Woo looked at it for a second. Then he looked back at Tony. For the first time, Tony saw a tiny hint of humor behind Jin-Woo's calm face. Just a hint. Then it was gone. That night, Jin-Woo stood on a rooftop alone. New York stretched below him in lights and movement. Sirens rose and fell like distant waves. He liked rooftops. They gave him space. He could see danger coming. He could leave if he needed to. His shadow lay long across the roof. The mark pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat that was not his. Jin-Woo stared at it. They found me. The thought didn't come with panic. It came with a cold, familiar weight. He had been hunted before. He had survived because he planned, because he moved first, because he didn't wait for the trap to close. Behind him, Igris stood like a statue, sword resting point down on the concrete. Loyal. Silent. Jin-Woo didn't need words from his soldiers. He didn't need comfort. But he did feel something else tonight. This world was loud, full of heroes, full of rules and speeches and cameras. In his world, people understood gates. They feared them. They respected hunters because hunters died in them. Here, people looked at his shadows and saw invasion. Ko understood that too. Jin-Woo looked down at the street. A police car passed. Two people on the sidewalk looked up, saw a figure on a roof, and pointed. One of them raised a phone. Jin-Woo stepped back into the shadow and vanished. He appeared 2 blocks away, on another rooftop, where no one was looking. He wasn't running from the city. He was avoiding the cage. A small crack flickered in the air far across the skyline. It opened for half a second, then closed. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. Another one flickered near the river. Then another. Not yet large, not yet fatal. But they were testing. He turned his head slightly, as if listening to a sound only he could hear. In his mind, the system stayed quiet. But the world did not. This universe had many powerful beings, and one of them had already reached out to him through that gate. Jin-Woo's voice was low, almost a whisper. "I won't let you use this place," he said. He wasn't sure who he was talking to. Maybe the thing behind the gate. Maybe himself. Far away, in a place that did not care about New York news, Victor Von Doom watched the same footage with no emotion on his face. In Latveria, the screens were large. The room was silent. The guards did not speak unless Doom asked. The video paused on a single frame. Jin-Woo standing in front of the gate, shadows rising behind him like a tide. Doom leaned forward slightly, not impressed, interested. His science measured energy. His magic tasted it. His mind connected patterns. "This is not chaos," Doom said quietly. This is structure. A Doombot standing nearby tilted its head like it was listening. Doom tapped a metal finger on the armrest. A power source with rules. A kingdom that obeys one man. A system that grants growth. He replayed the moment Jin-Woo anchored space against the Herald's pressure. Doom's eyes narrowed. He held reality, Doom said. He did not smile often, but something close to a smile touched his mouth. Bring me all data on this gate phenomenon, Doom ordered. Every energy reading, every magical report. A servant hesitated. My lord, the Avengers react, Doom said, voice calm. They do not act. He stood, cloak shifting like a shadow of its own. I will be polite, Doom said, then quieter to himself, and I will offer what they cannot. The next day, Steve Rogers found Jin-Woo before Fury did. Steve didn't chase. He didn't send drones. He didn't set traps. He asked. Peter told him which rooftops Jin-Woo liked. Strange gave him a safe route. Tony gave him a tiny tracker that would ping if a gate opened nearby. Steve climbed a stairwell and stepped onto a roof where the wind was strong and the city looked endless. Jin-Woo was already there, standing near the edge like a guard on a wall. Steve approached slowly and stopped a few steps away. I'm not here to argue, Steve said. Jin-Woo didn't turn. Then why are you here? Steve took a breath. To understand, he said, and to make sure you understand us. Jin-Woo's gaze stayed on the city. Steve continued, voice steady and honest. People are afraid, not because you hurt anyone, because your power doesn't fit in their heads. Jin-Woo's voice was calm. Fear makes people do foolish things. Steve nodded once. Sometimes. Fear also makes people build plans. Jin-Woo finally turned his head slightly. You mean Fury? Steve didn't deny it. Yes. Jin-Woo's eyes were flat. He wants control. Steve's jaw tightened. He wants safety, Steve corrected. He just doesn't always know the difference. Jin-Woo studied Steve's face like he was looking for lies. He didn't find any. Steve held out a hand, palm open. Whatever you are, Steve said. You chose to save people when you could have walked away. That matters. Jin-Woo looked at Steve's hand. He didn't take it. But his voice softened, just a little. In my world, Jin-Woo said, if you walk away, people die. Steve's eyes narrowed with empathy. That's true here too, he said. We just pretend it isn't sometimes. A small pause passed. Then Steve said, we can help. But you have to let us. Jin-Woo looked past Steve, toward the city. I will stop gates, Jin-Woo said. I don't need permission. Steve's mouth tightened. And what if stopping them means stepping on our laws? Jin-Woo answered honestly. Then your laws will have to keep up. Steve didn't like that answer, but he respected it. He tried a different angle. What do you want? Steve asked. Right now. Not in a perfect world. In this one. Jin-Woo's eyes lowered slightly. His voice was quiet. I want to know why I'm here, he said. Steve nodded. That's fair. Jin-Woo added, and I want to make sure nothing follows me that can't be stopped. Steve's face hardened. Then we're on the same side. Jin-Woo didn't argue. Steve took that as progress. Then Steve's communicator buzzed. Strange's voice came through, sharp. Steve, we have something. In the Avengers facility, Strange and Tony stood over a large display. The screen showed a map of the city. Red marks blinked where small gates had opened and closed. Larger marks showed the major ones. To most people, it looked random. To Strange, it looked like a spell. To Tony, it looked like a pattern. Strange pointed. They aren't just popping, Strange said. They're moving. Tony zoomed in. A faint line appeared, connecting the marks like a trail. Like footsteps, Tony muttered. Or like someone dragging a compass. Peter leaned close, eyes wide. So the gates are walking. Tony shot him a look. Don't make it cute. Steve entered with Jin-Woo behind him. Jin-Woo's shadows did not fill the room this time. Only Igris stood behind him, silent and heavy. Fury was already there, arms folded, face flat. Strange looked at Jin-Woo. When gates happen in your world, Strange asked, do they gather? Jin-Woo's eyes moved over the map. Sometimes, he said. When something is trying to open a bigger door. Tony pointed to a cluster forming near the water. Then you're going to love this. Strange took a slow breath. The center point is shifting, he said, toward a place with death on it. Peter frowned. Death on it? Strange's eyes turned serious. A place where the boundary is thin, where grief is heavy, where souls and endings leave a mark. Tony spoke in plain terms. A big cemetery island, he said. Not a tourist place. A place nobody thinks about. Steve's face tightened. Why there? Strange's voice was low. Because death is a door, he said, and someone is trying to make it easier to open. Jin-Woo stared at the map. The mark on his shadow pulsed faintly. He understood doors. He understood death. He spoke quietly. That's where the source is. Fury's eye narrowed. You're not going alone. Jin-Woo's gaze shifted to Fury. I didn't ask, Jin-Woo said. Fury's voice turned hard. This is my world. You don't operate here without oversight. Jin-Woo didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. This is also where people will die, Jin-Woo said. I won't wait for permission. Steve stepped between them, calm but firm. We go together, he said. We do it smart. Tony nodded. Agreed. We prep. We bring gear. Jin-Woo turned back to the map. Then he said the most dangerous thing he could say in that room. I will hunt it, he said. Tonight. Strange's eyes sharpened. Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo looked at Strange. You said someone is forcing it, he said. Then we shouldn't give them time. Fury's hand moved slightly, like he was about to signal agents. Steve's voice snapped. Stronger now. Fury, don't. Fury didn't move, but his eyes stayed cold. If he leaves, he doesn't come back. Jin-Woo's expression didn't change. Then you will have made your choice, he said. He stepped away. One of Tony's screens beeped as two small shadow shapes peeled off Jin-Woo's feet and sank into the floor. Tony pointed. He's leaving scouts again. Strange's jaw tightened. He's already gone, Strange whispered. Jin-Woo stepped into a shadow near the doorway and vanished. The room fell silent. Peter swallowed. So, we're just letting the Shadow King go hunt a death island by himself? Tony exhaled. We are absolutely not letting that happen, he said. Strange's hands were already forming a portal. Then move, Strange said. Steve grabbed his shield. Let's go, he said. Fury stared at the empty spot where Jin-Woo had been. His voice was quiet, and it sounded like a promise. I'm done being surprised, Fury said. Night covered the cemetery island like a blanket. There were no bright city lights here, only a few weak lamps along a fence line. The wind came off the water cold and damp. Jin-Woo stood on the shore, watching the island from a distance. He had traveled without boats before. Shadows made travel easy when darkness existed, but the island felt wrong. Not evil, exactly. Heavy, like the air remembered too many goodbyes. Jin-Woo's shadow stretched toward the water. It touched the edge like a living thing testing a line. Behind him, Igris and Baru rose silently. Baru's insect-like head tilted up toward the moon. It made a soft clicking sound, almost excited. Jin-Woo didn't look back. Quiet, he said. Baru froze like a child caught making noise. Jin-Woo scanned the island again. Then he saw it. A tiny orange light flickering near the trees. Not a lamp. A flame. A boat's engine buzzed low. Another boat, farther back, drifting without lights. People moved in dark coats. They carried boxes. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Cult," he said quietly. He stepped into shadow and crossed the water in an instant, appearing behind a row of trees on the island. The ground felt colder here. The grass looked dull, like it didn't want to grow. He moved silently through the trees, closing in. He saw a circle drawn on the ground with chalk and ash, symbols around it that weren't from his world. He saw bones laid out like keys, and he saw the crack in the air forming above the circle. Small, thin, but it was opening. A man in a dark coat whispered words Jin-Woo didn't know, and the crack widened. Jin-Woo raised his hand. Shadows moved. Before he could strike, a voice cut through the trees. "Hold it!" Jin-Woo didn't flinch. He turned his head slightly. A man stepped out of the darkness, tall, wearing a long coat. He held a sword that looked old and sharp. His eyes were hard, like he'd seen monsters in alleys for years. Blade. He didn't announce himself. He didn't joke. He just stood ready. Behind Blade, another figure appeared. White hood, white suit, crescent moon symbol, moving like a man who didn't care if he was seen. Moon Knight. Moon Knight's head tilted like he was listening to something not in the forest. "You're not one of them," Moon Knight said. Blade's sword stayed aimed. "That army you got," Blade said, low. "Is it under control?" Jin-Woo looked back at the cult circle. The gate was still forming. He didn't have time for a fight with heroes who didn't trust him. "It obeys me," Jin-Woo said. Same answer as before. Blade's eyes narrowed. "That's still not comforting." Moon Knight stepped closer, voice calm but strange. "The air is wrong," Moon Knight said. "Something is trying to open a door that shouldn't open." Jin-Woo nodded once. "Yes," he said. Blade watched him for a beat, then made a choice. "Then stop it," Blade said. "We'll talk after." That was good. Enough. Jin-Woo moved. Shadows surged forward, silent and fast. Igris appeared at the edge of the circle like a black statue suddenly alive. His sword flashed once. 2 cult members went down, knocked out, not killed. Jin-Woo didn't need bodies. He needed the ritual stopped. Baru leapt into the group and slapped a chanting man across the face so hard he spun. Baru made an excited sound, like he thought he was doing hero work. Moon Knight threw crescent-shaped blades that pinned sleeves to trees, trapping hands without cutting throats. Blade cut through a wooden staff that was feeding energy into the circle. Sparks flew. The gate shuddered. The cult leader screamed and shoved both hands toward the crack like he was trying to hold it open by force. The crack widened anyway. Something on the other side pushed back. A sound came through. Not a roar. A laugh. Low. Smooth. Like someone enjoying a game. Jin-Woo's mark pulsed on his shadow. He felt a second presence now, separate from the gate. Not the herald from before. Something closer to the ground. Something that liked deals. The crack split wider, and a creature crawled out. It looked like a long shadow peeled off the wall and given teeth. It had no clear face, just a mouth that opened too wide, and a body that flowed like smoke. When it moved, it didn't make footsteps. It made the light dim. Baru lunged first, eager. The shadow creature turned toward Baru and opened its mouth. A pull hit the air. Baru's body flickered. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed sharply. It was eating shadow. Baru staggered back, form unstable. Jin-Woo raised his hand. "Back!" he ordered. Baru retreated, offended, like a dog told to sit. The creature slid forward and snapped at Igris. Igris blocked with his sword. The sword hit. Then the edge dulled slightly, like the darkness had chewed at it. Blade swore softly. "What is that?" Moon Knight's voice was tight. "It feeds on fear," Moon Knight said, like he could taste it. And it's feeding on his shadows. Jin-Woo's mind moved fast. A counter. Not stronger. Not bigger. A bad matchup. The cult leader laughed, blood on his lips. "You can't win," he gasped. "He sent it for you." "He?" Blade snapped. The cult leader's eyes rolled back in sick joy. "The one who buys kings," he whispered. The creature lunged at Jin-Woo. Jin-Woo didn't summon more shadows into its mouth. He vanished. He reappeared above the creature and drove his dagger down. The dagger hit, but the creature didn't bleed. It rippled and tried to swallow the blade. Jin-Woo yanked back, stepping away before the pull could take more. He looked around. There were lamps along the path, weak but light. He pointed. "Break the circle," Jin-Woo said to Blade. "Now." Blade didn't argue. He slammed his sword down into the chalk line. The symbols cracked. The air trembled. Moon Knight grabbed the cult leader by the collar and dragged him back, away from the gate. The crack wavered, but the Shadow Eater stayed. It wasn't tied to the gate anymore. It was here. And it was hungry. The creature spread wide, like a blanket, trying to cover Jin-Woo's shadow field. The ground dimmed. Even the moonlight looked weaker. Jin-Woo's shadows began to thin where the creature touched them. Jin-Woo's face stayed calm, but inside, something sharpened. He didn't fear the creature. He feared what it could do if it grew. He spoke one word. "Disperse." His shadow soldiers didn't rush in. They split. They spread out across the trees, the paths, the stones, the fences. Not to attack. To stop the creature from eating them all at once. Moon Knight watched, impressed despite himself. "He thinks like a commander," Moon Knight muttered. Blade's eyes stayed hard. "Good," Blade said, "because we need one." The creature lunged again, faster, trying to catch Jin-Woo directly. Jin-Woo didn't dodge backward. He stepped forward into it. His body hit the darkness. For a split second, it looked like it swallowed him. Then Jin-Woo erupted out the other side with raw force, his dagger carving a bright line of motion in the air as he cut. The creature tore in half. Not dead, but split. It recoiled like it felt pain. Jin-Woo didn't waste time celebrating. He pointed at the lamps again. "More light," Jin-Woo said. Blade understood immediately. He grabbed a lamppost with one hand and ripped the light fixture down, smashing it on the ground. Sparks flew. The bulb burst, but the electric arc flashed bright for a second. The creature flinched. Moon Knight threw a flare from his belt. It hit the ground and hissed, bright white. The creature pulled back again, like light made it uncomfortable. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Good," he said. He lifted his hand, and instead of thick shadows, he summoned thin ones. String-like, fast, controlled. They wrapped around the creature like ropes, holding it in place without feeding it too much at once. Igris charged from the side and struck in a clean, heavy cut. The blade didn't slice flesh. It sliced the creature's shape. It tore a chunk away, and that chunk crumbled into smoke. The creature screamed without a voice, then the air behind them warmed. A new smell filled the island, sweet and wrong, like burning sugar and old smoke. Blade's grip tightened. "I hate that smell." Moon Knight's head snapped toward the trees. "He's here," Moon Knight whispered. Jin-Woo felt it too. A presence that wasn't a monster. A presence that had a smile. A man stepped out from between the trees like he belonged in the dark. He wore a neat suit. His hair was perfect. His shoes didn't touch mud. His eyes were too bright. He looked at the fight like it was entertainment. "Hello," the man said warmly. "You work so hard." Blade raised his sword. "Mephisto." The name hit the air like a warning bell. Peter wasn't here to hear it. Tony wasn't here to swear about it. But Jin-Woo didn't need them. He heard the tone. A deal maker. A trap builder. Mephisto's smile widened. "Ah," he said. "You know me." Blade's voice was flat. "Everyone who hunts monsters learns your name." Mephisto's eyes moved to Jin-Woo. The smile sharpened. "And you," Mephisto said. "You're new. But you're not lost, are you?" Jin-Woo didn't answer. Mephisto didn't mind. He kept talking like a salesman who enjoyed his own voice. "I felt a kingdom arrive," Mephisto said. "A king with no land in this world. A gatemaker's favorite toy. A soldier who never gets to stop." Jin-Woo's mark pulsed again, like it agreed with being watched. Mephisto looked pleased. "Oh," he said softly. "Someone else already put their finger on you. How rude." Blade took a step forward. "Back off," Blade said. Mephisto glanced at Blade like Blade was a fly. "I'm not here for you," Mephisto said. He looked at Jin-Woo again. "I'm here to help," Mephisto said. Moon Knight's voice turned sharp. "Help is not your thing." Mephisto chuckled. "Help is exactly my thing," he said. "For a price." He lifted one hand, palm open, mirroring the herald from before, but warmer. Friendlier. More dangerous. "You want answers," Mephisto said to Jin-Woo. "You want a way home. You want peace." Jin-Woo's eyes didn't change. "No," Jin-Woo said. Mephisto's smile stayed. "Yes," Mephisto said gently. "You do." The world around them shifted, not like a portal, like a dream pushed into real space. For a second, the cold cemetery air vanished. Jin-Woo stood in a familiar street from his own world. He smelled food stalls. He heard traffic that sounded different. He saw a small figure walking ahead, someone he recognized. His chest tightened before he could stop it. Mephisto's voice slid into his ear like a whisper. "You could have this again," Mephisto said. "You could stop fighting." Jin-Woo's hands clenched. Blade and Moon Knight were still there, but far away now, like they were behind glass. The Shadow Eater's screech faded. Only the memory stayed. The ache. Mephisto's voice was calm. "Just a small piece," he said. "A little corner of your shadows. A key. A door. And I give you a path home." Jin-Woo's eyes hardened. He had learned what deals cost. He had learned that peace, bought from monsters, was just a different kind of cage. Jin-Woo spoke, voice low and firm. "No." The dream wavered. Mephisto's smile did not vanish, but it changed. Less friendly, more sharp. "Such discipline," Mephisto said. "I like you." Jin-Woo's shadow surged, and the dream shattered like thin ice. The cemetery island snapped back into place. Cold air, trees, bones, blood. Blade was still standing with his sword up, eyes furious. Moon Knight was tense, like he had felt the dream pull too. Mephisto's eyes gleamed. "But now," Mephisto said softly, "I know what you want." Jin-Woo's voice was quiet. "You knew before." Mephisto chuckled. "I suspected," he said. "Now I'm sure." The Shadow Eater lunged again, as if Mephisto had tugged a leash. Jin-Woo didn't panic. He made a fast choice. "Everyone back," Jin-Woo said. Blade started to protest, but Moon Knight grabbed his arm. Moon Knight's voice was urgent. "He's about to do something big," Moon Knight said. Jin-Woo stepped forward alone, toward the Shadow Eater. He didn't summon more soldiers into the creature's mouth. He pulled his shadows inward instead, compressing them tight around himself like armor. Then he moved. He vanished and reappeared inside the creature's body. Not physically inside, but inside the space where its darkness was thickest. The pull hit him like pressure. For a second, he felt his own power get tugged. His jaw tightened. Then he did what he always did in bad dungeons. He attacked the core. He drove his dagger in again and again, not into flesh, but into the shape that held the creature together. The creature convulsed. Light from the flare hit its edges, and where Jin-Woo struck, the darkness tore and thinned. Igris charged at the same moment, blade glowing faintly in the flare light, and cut across the tear. The creature split wide. Jin-Woo burst out and landed on the ground, coat whipping. The Shadow Eater collapsed into smoke. It tried to reform. Jin-Woo lifted one hand and snapped his fingers, not to summon, to end. His shadows surged upward like a closing fist, crushing the smoke into nothing. The island went quiet. Mephisto clapped slowly, polite and mocking. "Beautiful," Mephisto said. "A king who can kill the dark." Blade's voice was a growl. "Get out." Mephisto smiled. "Soon," he said. He looked at Jin-Woo one last time. "Remember," Mephisto said, "I can open doors. I can close them too." Jin-Woo's eyes were flat. "So can I," Jin-Woo said. Mephisto's smile widened, like he liked being challenged. Then the air behind him opened like a curtain, red and deep, and he stepped through. He vanished. The smell faded, but the damage stayed. Blade lowered his sword slightly, still ready. "He won't stop," Blade said. Moon Knight's head tilted, listening to something only he could hear. "He already got what he wanted," Moon Knight murmured. Jin-Woo knew what Moon Knight meant. Mephisto didn't need a deal tonight. He had learned Jin-Woo's desire, and desire was a handle, a way to pull. A portal flared orange in the air above the broken ritual circle. Dr. Strange stepped out, cloak snapping behind him like it was angry. Tony Stark hovered right behind him in armor, repulsors humming. Steve Rogers came through next, shield up. Peter followed, wide-eyed and late. Strange's eyes swept the scene. Bones, broken symbols, cult members tied up. Blade and Moon Knight standing tense, smoke stains where the Shadow Eater had died. Then, Strange's gaze locked onto Jin-Woo. "You left," Strange said, voice tight. Jin-Woo didn't flinch. "I moved," Jin-Woo said. Strange's jaw clenched. "You disappeared from every sensor Tony built," Strange snapped. "You walked into a death place alone." Tony landed and looked around, alarmed. "Okay," Tony said. "This is officially above my dislike threshold. Why is Blade here? Why is Moon Knight here? Why does it smell like—" Blade cut in, cold. "Mephisto was here." Tony froze. Even through the sarcasm, fear flashed. "Oh," Tony said quietly. "That's not great." Peter's eyes widened. "Mephisto? Like, devil guy?" Moon Knight looked at Peter like he was both amused and tired. "You're new," Moon Knight said. Steve stepped toward Jin-Woo, not accusing, but firm. "You should have told us," Steve said. Jin-Woo's gaze held Steve's. "You would have tried to stop me," Jin-Woo said. Steve didn't deny it. "Yes," Steve said. "Because if you fall into a trap, everyone pays." Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. "I didn't fall." Strange's eyes narrowed. "Not tonight," Strange said. "But you invited the game." Jin-Woo looked at Strange. "The game was already here," Jin-Woo said. Strange's mouth tightened. He wanted to argue, but the broken ritual circle at his feet proved Jin-Woo had not come for fun. Strange took a slow breath. His voice lowered. "What happened?" Strange asked. Jin-Woo gave a clean report. Cult, gate, Shadow Eater, Mephisto, offer, refusal. Tony's face hardened as he listened. Fury wasn't here, but Tony could already hear Fury's reaction in his head. "A deal offer means they think you're worth buying," Tony said. Jin-Woo's eyes stayed flat. "They're wrong," Blade snorted. "They're never wrong about wanting," Blade said. Moon Knight's voice was quieter. "He showed you something," Moon Knight said to Jin-Woo. "A dream." Jin-Woo didn't answer. That silence told Strange enough. Strange's eyes softened a fraction. "He doesn't just want your power," Strange said. "He wants your reasons." Jin-Woo's mark pulsed on his shadow. Steve's grip tightened on his shield. "So now what?" Strange looked at the island, then at the air above it, sensing the lines of reality. "The gates weren't random," Strange said. "This island is a weak point, a thin place. They used it to call something." Tony's hood flashed. "And the energy spike here," Tony said, voice tense. "Just lit up every sensor we have. Everyone who can see weird stuff just saw this." Peter swallowed. "Everyone like villains?" Tony looked at him. "Everyone like villains," Tony confirmed. "And cosmic beings. And probably my accountant somehow." Strange's gaze moved to Jin-Woo. "You stopped a catastrophe," Strange said. "But you also announced yourself to forces that don't play fair." Jin-Woo's voice was calm. "They already saw me," he said. "Now they know I won't kneel." Steve stepped closer. "We're not asking you to kneel," Steve said. "We're asking you not to stand alone." Jin-Woo stared at Steve for a beat. Then he spoke, quiet and honest. "In my world," Jin-Woo said, "standing alone was often safer. For others." Steve's face tightened with understanding and pain. "Here," Steve said, "standing alone makes you a target, and it makes us blind." Jin-Woo looked away toward the water. For a moment, the wind filled the silence. Then Jin-Woo nodded once. Not surrender, not agreement to rules, but a small sign that he heard Steve. Strange's portal flared again. "Back to the facility," Strange said. "We plan the next move, together." Blade sheathed his sword. "Mephisto won't wait," Blade warned. Moon Knight's head tilted again. "And neither will the other one," Moon Knight murmured, thinking of the dark dimension pressure. Tony glanced at Jin-Woo's shadow, at the mark. "Yeah," Tony said quietly. "We have more than one problem." They stepped through the portal. Behind them, the cemetery island returned to darkness. But the darkness did not feel empty anymore. It felt watched. In the quiet between worlds, something observed without blinking. The Watcher stood where no human eyes could reach, looking down at the thin lines of fate tightening around one point. A quiet hunter with a shadow kingdom. The Watcher did not speak aloud, but if he had, it would have sounded simple. This universe has many kings. Now it has another. And somewhere far away, in a castle of steel and pride, Dr. Doom watched the new energy spike appear on his own instruments. He didn't look surprised. He looked satisfied. "Good," Doom said softly. "Now we stop pretending." Back in New York, in a room full of heroes and alarms, a final small crack flickered above the skyline. It opened for half a second, and on the other side, something listened. Not laughing this time. Waiting. 2 weeks after the first gate, New York had a new routine. People still went to work. Kids still ran to school. Tourists still took photos. But every few hours, Tony Stark's sensor grid would chirp. A warning would flash on secure screens. And somewhere, something thin would try to split open in the air. Most of the time, the cracks were small. A hand's width. A door that didn't fully open. Strange called them stress tears. Tony called them reality pimples. Steve called them problems we stop before they grow. Jin-Woo didn't call them anything. He just hunted. At night, he moved across rooftops like a shadow in a shadow. His soldiers spread out in quiet pairs, sinking into alleys and subway tunnels and dark stairwells. They watched weak points the way guards watch gates in a fortress. Peter learned to spot them after a while. Sometimes he would be swinging past, and a dark figure would rise, out of an alley for 1 second, give him a stiff little wave, then sink back down like it had never existed. It should have been creepy. It was, a little. But it also meant someone was watching the streets when Peter couldn't. That helped him sleep. Just a bit. The world, of course, did not sleep. The videos never stopped. The theories got louder. Some people praised the Shadow King. Some people wanted him hunted. Some people wanted him hired. And Fury wanted him predictable. In a secure facility, Fury sat across a table from Jin-Woo with Steve and Strange nearby, like 2 different kinds of pressure. Fury slid a folder forward. "Rules," he said. Jin-Woo didn't touch it. Tony leaned back against the wall, arms crossed. Nick, he's not applying for a driver's license. Fury didn't look at Tony. I don't care. If he's operating in my world, there are limits. Jin-Woo's voice was calm. Limits don't stop gates. Fury's eye narrowed. Limits stop panic. Steve spoke before Fury could sharpen it further. Jin-Woo, Steve said. He's asking for coordination, not ownership. Jin-Woo looked at Steve, then at the folder. He finally reached out and opened it. The pages were full of simple demands. Check-ins, location pings, no unsupervised operations, no summoned forces in public places without clearance. Jin-Woo closed the folder and slid it back. No, he said. Fury's jaw tightened. Then you don't get access to our intel. Tony snorted. Nick, he's been finding the gates before we do. Fury leaned forward. And he'll keep doing it. Alone. Without accountability. Jin-Woo's gaze didn't move. Correct. The room went quiet. Strange watched Jin-Woo's shadow on the floor. The mark still pulsed faintly, like a bruise that wouldn't heal. Strange didn't like that. He didn't like that an outside force had a handle on someone standing inside his world. He chose his words carefully. If you won't agree to rules, Strange said, agree to one thing. Jin-Woo looked at him. Strange's voice was steady. When the mark flares, Strange said, tell me. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? Because it means something is looking, Strange said. And if something is looking, I want to look back. Jin-Woo held his gaze for a moment. Then he nodded once. Fine. Fury didn't smile. That's not enough. Steve's voice sharpened just a little. It's a start. Tony raised a hand like a teacher in class. I propose a middle ground, he said. We don't leash him. He doesn't ghost us. We set up a gate response channel. If he sees a major event, he pings it. If we see one, we ping him. No boss. Just info. Fury stared at him. You think info solves this? Tony shrugged. It solves more than ego does. Fury's eye flicked to Steve, then back to Jin-Woo. Temporary, Fury said. Jin-Woo's answer was simple. As long as no one tries to restrain me. Fury didn't promise, but he didn't say no. That was as close to peace as the room could hold. As they stood to leave, one of Jin-Woo's soldiers rose out of the floor near the door. It stood straight, then tapped its own chest like it had seen Steve do it. Then it raised its fist in the air like an old propaganda poster. Okay, Tony murmured. Your guys are learning patriotism. This is either heartwarming or terrifying. Steve glanced back and almost smiled. Almost. Jin-Woo didn't react, but the soldier held the pose until Jin-Woo's eyes shifted toward it. Then it slowly lowered its arm like it had been caught doing something silly. Peter, standing behind Steve, whispered, They're like toddlers with swords. Tony whispered back, Don't say that out loud. They might unionize. That night, a gate tried to open above the East River. It wasn't the biggest, but it was the wrong shape. It didn't tear like the first ones. It unfurled, smooth and careful, like someone had learned how to cut clean. Strange felt it from the sanctum and opened a portal at once. He stepped out onto a rooftop near the river and saw Jin-Woo already there. Jin-Woo stood with his coat still, eyes fixed on the air. His shadow field spread across the roof like black water. The mark on his shadow was bright now. Strange didn't bother with greetings. It flared, Strange said. Jin-Woo nodded once. They're close. The air split wider. A figure stepped through, tall and thin, cracked with purple light. The herald. It didn't roar. It didn't threaten. It simply looked at Jin-Woo like a person looking at a door they owned. You continue to resist, it said. Jin-Woo's voice was flat. I'm still here. The herald's eyes shifted to Strange for half a second. Sorcerer, it said, like it remembered him too. Strange lifted a hand. "This world isn't your hallway," Strange said. The herald smiled without warmth. "All worlds become hallways," it said. "When the right king opens the doors." It looked back at Jin-Woo. "Monarch," it said. Strange's breath caught. "Monarch?" Jin-Woo didn't answer, but his eyes hardened. The herald spread its hands, and the air behind it rippled. Not a full gate this time. A window. Through it, Strange saw a vast dark pressure, like an endless space filled with heat and hunger. Dormammu was not fully there, but his presence pressed close, curious. The herald spoke softly. "You can return," it said, "or you can be taken." Jin-Woo's answer didn't change. "No." The herald tilted its head. "Then we change the offer." The window shimmered, and the rooftop was gone. For one heartbeat, Strange saw Jin-Woo standing in a different city, different light, different sounds, a place that felt like Jin-Woo's world. He saw a figure in the distance that made Jin-Woo's posture tighten. Strange felt the trap at once, a wish in the shape of a weapon. Strange snapped his hands outward and threw a spell like a net over the illusion. "No," Strange hissed. "Not in my sky." The illusion cracked and vanished. Jin-Woo's jaw was tight. His calm stayed, but it was now a calm made of iron. The herald watched the failed temptation with mild disappointment. "Your attachments remain," it said to Jin-Woo. "Good. That makes you steerable." Jin-Woo moved. He vanished into shadow and reappeared at the herald's side, dagger already cutting. The herald bent space, trying to slide away. But Jin-Woo's shadow field anchored the rooftop like a heavy weight. The herald's escape stuttered. Strange's eyes widened. Jin-Woo was doing it again, holding the rules in place. Strange threw a binding spell at the herald's arms. This time, the rings didn't shatter. They held, trembling. The herald's eyes narrowed. "You learn," it said. Jin-Woo didn't speak. He commanded. Shadows rose around the herald like walls. Igris appeared behind it, blade ready. Beru leapt in front, then stopped and did something strange. Beru struck a pose, one hand on hip, one hand pointing forward like a dramatic hero. Strange blinked. "Is that?" Tony's voice suddenly crackled through comms, distant and annoyed. "That's Spider-Man's pose. Don't ask me how I know. Focus!" Strange's mouth tightened. Jin-Woo's eyes flicked to Beru for half a second. Beru froze in the pose, then slowly lowered his arm and attacked properly. The herald flexed. Space bent, trying to crush the shadows inward. Jin-Woo stepped through the bend like it was fog and drove his dagger into the herald's chest again, right where the purple cracks were brightest. The herald staggered. Strange felt the window to the dark dimension wobble. He seized the moment and slammed a sealing spell down like a lid. The window snapped shut. The herald's mouth opened in anger for the first time. Then it stopped. Its eyes changed. Not with fear. With satisfaction. The mark on Jin-Woo's shadow flared, then steadied. The herald spoke softly. "Now we have your rhythm," it said. Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "What did you do?" The herald smiled. "You anchor space," it said. "You hold doors shut." It leaned in slightly. "So we will make a door you cannot stand in front of." Jin-Woo's dagger twisted. The herald's form cracked, then dissolved backward into the thinning tear it had arrived through. It escaped again. Not because Jin-Woo couldn't stop it, because it didn't want to be stopped yet. The tear closed. The river wind returned. Strange lowered his hands, breathing hard. Jin-Woo stood still, staring at empty air like he could still see the threat. Strange spoke carefully. "Monarch," Strange said. "What does it mean?" Jin-Woo's voice was quiet. "A title," he said. "A role." Strange waited. Jin-Woo's eyes stayed on the skyline. Shadow, "Monarch," he said. Strange felt a chill, not from fear, from understanding. A monarch wasn't just power, it was a seat, a kingdom. Strange's voice was low, "And your kingdom is here now." Jin-Woo didn't deny it. He just said, "I didn't choose the location." Strange's cloak drifted closer to Jin-Woo, like it was trying to decide if it trusted him. Strange watched the mark pulse faintly again. Then he made a choice. "We need to cut the mark's advantage," Strange said. "If it can track you, it can bait you." Jin-Woo looked at him. "Can you remove it?" Strange hesitated. "Maybe," he said. "But removing a hook can leave a wound, and I don't know what it's tied to." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "Then we mislead it." Strange stared. "How?" Jin-Woo's voice stayed calm. "We give it what it wants to see," he said, "and we choose where it sees it." Strange didn't like it, but he respected it. "Fine," Strange said. "Then we pick the battlefield." 3 days later, the storm hit. Tony's sensors screamed all at once. Gates opened across the city like a rash of cuts. Not random cuts. A shape, a circle, a net. And at the center point, the cemetery island flared like a beacon. Fury stood over the main screen, face set. "It's coordinated," he said. "This is an operation." Tony's hands flew over controls. "No kidding," he snapped. "They're opening in a pattern that bypasses our strongest wards." Strange stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "They learned where we seal," he said. Steve grabbed his shield. "We split," he said. "Rescue first." Peter's spider sense was already buzzing like a trapped bee. "I can take Midtown," he said. "Lots of people." "Do it," Steve said. "Keep them moving." Jin-Woo stood near the edge of the room, still and quiet. The mark on his shadow was bright, like a spotlight. He looked at the map and spoke. "They want me at the center," Jin-Woo said. Fury's eye narrowed. "Then you don't go." Jin-Woo didn't even look at him. "Yes," he said. "I do." Steve turned to Fury. "We knew this was coming," Steve said. "We planned for it." Fury's jaw tightened. "Plan for him to be taken." Tony cut in, sharp. "Plan for him to not be alone when they try." Strange lifted his hands. Portals spun open like orange wheels. "Positions," Strange said. "Now." The team moved. Peter swung out first, heart pounding. Below him, a small gate had opened above a street corner. Monsters spilled out, smaller than the first wave but fast and sharp. People screamed and ran. Peter dropped down and fired webs in wide arcs, building quick bridges and barriers. "Hey, hey, move this way," Peter shouted. "Do not go toward the teeth. That's a good life tip." A shadow soldier rose beside a panicked woman and gently lifted her like she weighed nothing, carrying her away from the street. The woman screamed at first. Then she realized she wasn't being hurt. She stared at the shadow soldier's blank face and whispered, "Are you helping me?" The soldier gave a stiff nod. Then, as if it remembered something, it raised its thumb in a perfect thumbs up. Peter saw it and almost laughed mid-swing. "Okay," he yelled. "Good job, shadow guy. But maybe don't do the pose while holding a human." The soldier held the thumbs up anyway. It carried the woman to safety. Across the city, Tony's drones blasted monsters back from crowds without flattening buildings. He rerouted traffic lights to clear roads. He dropped emergency barriers like he was playing a very expensive video game. Steve moved through chaos like a steady anchor, pulling people out of danger, pointing them toward exits, blocking monster strikes that would have killed someone slower. Strange split his attention across portals, sealing the worst tiers and reinforcing weak points like he was stitching a ripped blanket while it was still tearing. And Jin-Woo went to the center. He stepped into shadow and crossed the water to the cemetery island with a single breath. He arrived to find the island lit by sick, purple cracks in the air. Multiple small tiers hovered above the ground in a ring around one large, growing gate. Cultists stood in a wide circle, chanting in a language that made the air feel oily. Bones and black candles lined the dirt. They weren't just opening a gate. They were building a doorway frame, a permanent one. Jin-Woo didn't waste words. His shadow army rose like a flood across the grass. Igris cut down the ritual supports. Beru tore through the chanting line, knocking people away from the circle with blunt force, not killing, just breaking the ritual rhythm. Jin-Woo moved straight toward the main gate. The mark on his shadow pulsed in time with it. He felt eyes on him, not human eyes. The gate widened. The herald stepped through again, but this time it wasn't alone. Behind it, the air rippled with that vast pressure. Dormammu was still not fully present, but his shadow filled the crack like smoke behind a door. Mephisto appeared too, standing off to the side like a guest at a party, smiling like he had bought a ticket. "Oh, this is lovely," Mephisto said. "Such teamwork." Jin-Woo's eyes didn't leave the gate. Strange's portal flared behind Jin-Woo, and Strange stepped onto the island, cloak snapping in the wind. Steve and Tony arrived through other portals a second later, then more heroes at the edges, keeping the city from collapsing while they reinforced the center. Fury wasn't there. Fury never stepped into a trap unless he had to. But his voice crackled in Tony's ear. "Do not let him get pulled through," Fury said. Tony muttered, "No pressure, Nick." Strange's eyes locked on the gate. "It's a frame," he said. "If it stabilizes, the dark dimension will have an open route." The herald spoke, voice like stone, grinding. "Monarch," it said. "Step forward." Jin-Woo did. Mephisto clapped again, delighted. "Yes," Mephisto said. "Do it. Show them why kings are feared." Steve's voice was steady but tight. "Jin-Woo," he said. "We're here." Jin-Woo didn't look back. "I know," he said. He lifted his hand, and his shadow field expanded across the island like a dark dome, covering the ritual circle and swallowing the smaller tiers. The cultists screamed as their candles snuffed out. The air pressure shifted. Strange felt it at once. Jin-Woo wasn't just fighting. He was overriding the battlefield rules. Strange pushed his own magic into the edges, reinforcing it, turning Jin-Woo's shadow dome into a sealed container instead of a spreading disaster. Tony's HUD flashed warnings. "The energy in there is off the charts," he said. "This is like two realms wrestling." The herald lunged. Jin-Woo met it. Their clash wasn't loud like thunder. It was sharp, clean, fast. Jin-Woo moved through shadow steps, appearing and striking, forcing the herald to react instead of dictate. The herald bent space to crush him. Jin-Woo anchored space with his own domain. The herald's tricks slowed inside the shadow dome. It hissed, annoyed. Then Dormammu's presence pressed harder, like a giant hand pushing on the far side of glass. The dome trembled. Strange's jaw clenched. "It's pushing," he said. "It's pushing through the frame." Mephisto leaned toward Steve, smiling. "You see?" Mephisto said. "Your world has doors everywhere. You just pretend you don't." Steve didn't look at him. "Get out of my world," Steve said. Mephisto chuckled. "Oh, I will," he said. "After I watch the choice." Tony fired a beam at a ritual pillar, shattering it. The gate frame flickered, but another pillar ignited with purple flame. "They have backups," Tony snapped. Beru skidded up, smacked the new pillar with both hands, and yelled something that sounded like, "Avengers! Assemble!" Tony's head snapped toward him. "No, absolutely not!" Even in the middle of the end of the world, Peter's voice came over comms, breathless. "Did a shadow bug just steal our catchphrase?" Tony shouted. "Focus, kid." Strange's eyes narrowed as he felt the ritual logic. "They're not just opening a gate," Strange said. They're using the mark. They're using Jin-Woo as the key. The herald's voice cut in, cold and pleased. Yes, it said. He is the lock and the key. Jin-Woo's eyes hardened. Mephisto's smile widened. And locks can be picked, Mephisto said softly. The mark flared bright. For a split second, Jin-Woo felt a pull in his chest, like gravity had shifted, and the gate was now the center of him. It wasn't strong enough to rip him through. Not yet. But it was the start. Strange saw Jin-Woo's posture change by a hair and knew what it meant. Jin-Woo, Strange shouted. It's pulling through the brand! Jin-Woo didn't panic. He made a choice. He reached into his own shadow and grabbed the mark like it was a physical thing. The pain that flashed across his face was the first honest crack Strange had seen from him. Jin-Woo's voice stayed steady anyway. Take it, Jin-Woo said. Not to the herald. To himself. He ripped a piece of his shadow away. Not a soldier. Not a living part. A chunk of his domain cut clean. The mark transferred to that piece like a magnet snapping onto metal. Jin-Woo threw it. Igris caught it in midair with a shield, then hurled it straight into the open gate frame like a spear tip. The herald's eyes widened. The gate flared, confused, then locked onto the marked shadow piece instead of Jin-Woo. Dormammu's pressure surged toward the bait. Strange understood instantly. Seal it, Strange snapped. He threw every ounce of magic he had into a closing spell, while Tony activated a field device he'd been building for days, an emergency gate clamp that forced the frame to collapse inward. The gate shrieked like metal twisting. The marked shadow piece vanished into the crack. The crack tried to widen around it, Strange, and Tony squeezed it shut. For 1 second, the whole island shook like it might split. Then the gate snapped closed like a slammed door. Silence hit. Not peaceful silence. A stunned, shocked silence. Mephisto's smile faltered for the first time. The herald stumbled, as if its plan had lost its handle. Jin-Woo stood still, breathing slow. The mark on his shadow was gone. Not hidden. Gone. Strange stared at Jin-Woo, shocked. You cut it off, Strange whispered. Jin-Woo's voice was quiet. I removed their leash, he said. The herald's voice turned sharp with anger. You threw away a piece of your kingdom. Jin-Woo looked at it. I can build again, he said. The herald lunged, furious now, trying to salvage the moment with force. Jin-Woo met it without hesitation. Without the pull, he moved even cleaner. The herald bent space, but it no longer had rhythm. It was reacting, not leading. Igris pinned its arm. Beru tackled its legs. Shadows rose like chains. Jin-Woo drove his dagger into the center crack in its chest and held it there. The herald convulsed. Then it shattered into purple ash that blew backward into nothing. Strange felt the dark dimension pressure withdraw, like a hand yanked away from a hot stove. Dormammu's attention faded, not gone forever, but pushed back. Mephisto sighed, dramatic, like a theater critic disappointed by the ending. Ah, he said, so you're the stubborn kind. Steve stepped toward Mephisto, shield up. Leave, Steve said. Mephisto looked at Steve as if Steve were interesting in a simple way. You protect your world, Mephisto said. It's cute. Steve's voice stayed flat. Leave. Mephisto's eyes returned to Jin-Woo. He spoke gently, almost kindly. You just proved something, Mephisto said. You will cut yourself to stop a door. You will bleed power to protect strangers. Jin-Woo didn't respond. Mephisto smiled again, softer now. That means you are not for sale, he said. He tilted his head. But you are still breakable. Then he stepped back, and a red curtain of space opened behind him. Before he left, he added one last line, like a gift wrapped in poison. When you get tired, Mephisto said, You'll remember my offer." He vanished. The island wind returned, cold and plain. Tony exhaled hard. "Well," he said, "that was my least favorite party." Steve looked at Jin-Woo. "You okay?" he asked. Jin-Woo's answer was honest, even if it was small. "I'm fine," he said. Strange watched him closely. He could feel the missing piece in Jin-Woo's domain like a gap in a wall. "Fine," Strange repeated quietly, not convinced. Jin-Woo looked at Strange. "It was worth it," he said. Strange didn't argue, because he had seen it too. If Jin-Woo hadn't done that, the gate might have found its grip, and then there would have been no city left to argue in. Fury's voice came over comms, low and controlled. "Status!" he demanded. Tony replied, "Gate frame collapsed. Herald gone. No dark dimension breach." A pause. Then Fury said, "And Jin-Woo?" Tony looked at Jin-Woo, then at Steve, then at Strange. He answered carefully. "Still here," Tony said. Fury's voice was quiet. "Bring him in." Jin-Woo's eyes narrowed. "No cages," he said, like he was reminding them again. Steve's voice cut in, firm. "No cages," Steve repeated. Fury didn't answer, but he also didn't push it in that moment. The crisis was over. For now. That was enough. The city took days to breathe again. There were damaged streets and broken windows, but there was no open portal hanging over New York. There was no dark dimension flood. People had lived. That mattered. In the weeks that followed, Jin-Woo didn't join the Avengers with a press conference. He didn't move into the tower. He didn't smile for cameras. He simply stayed. He hunted gates before they grew. He sealed weak points with shadow scouts. He showed up in the dark places where monsters tried to slip through. Sometimes Steve was there, sometimes Strange. Sometimes Peter would swing in late and find a shadow soldier already holding a crowd behind a safe line, like a silent bouncer at a club. Peter started calling them night shift. Tony pretended he hated that. He printed them more badges anyway. Fury kept his contingency plans. Everyone knew that. It sat in the background like a loaded question. But Fury also stopped calling Jin-Woo it on private channels. He called him him. It was small. For Fury, it was huge. And Jin-Woo did something small too. He started answering the gate channel faster. Not because he liked rules, because he understood teamwork, even if he didn't want the uniform. He became what Strange had called him on that rooftop, even if he didn't say the words out loud. A lock. Not a prison lock. A door lock. A guard at the edge of something worse. On a quiet night, Peter found Jin-Woo on a rooftop again. No alarms, no screaming, no purple light. Just wind, city lights, and the low sound of traffic. Jin-Woo stood near the edge, looking out like he was counting the places where a crack could form. Peter landed a few feet away and kept his mask off. He'd learned Jin-Woo didn't like secrets in close space. Peter rubbed the back of his neck. "So," he said, trying to sound casual, "we're doing normal nights now?" Jin-Woo didn't look at him. "Normal changes," he said. Peter nodded slowly. "Yeah, that checks out." A shadow soldier rose quietly behind Jin-Woo, then stopped, like it realized it had interrupted. It raised 2 fingers in a peace sign, the way Peter did sometimes for selfies. Peter stared. "Oh my gosh." Jin-Woo glanced back. The soldier froze, then slowly lowered its hand. Peter whispered, "They're learning from us." Jin-Woo's voice was quiet. "They watch," he said. "They copy what they think matters." Peter swallowed. "That is kind of sweet, in a very spooky way." Jin-Woo's eyes stayed on the skyline. "You're not afraid," he said. Peter let out a short laugh. "I'm absolutely afraid," he said. "I'm just used to being afraid and still doing stuff." Jin-Woo was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's a good skill." Peter sat down on the roof ledge, legs dangling. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Jin-Woo glanced at him. Peter spoke carefully. When Mephisto did the dream thing, Peter said, did you want it? Jin-Woo didn't answer right away. The wind moved his coat slightly. Then he said simply, yes. Peter's chest tightened. Jin-Woo added, wanting isn't weakness, he said. Letting it control you is. Peter nodded. Yeah, he said. I get that. Jin-Woo looked down at the street far below, where tiny cars moved like slow insects. In my world, he said, I was always walking toward the next fight. Peter kept his voice soft. And here? Jin-Woo's eyes shifted just a little toward the city. Here, Jin-Woo said, there are many fighters, many heroes. Peter smiled slightly. We're kind of a lot. Jin-Woo's mouth twitched. Not a full smile, but close. Yes, he said. You are. Peter leaned back on his hands. So what now? He asked. Are you staying forever? Are you leaving? Are you, like, the Shadow Avenger? Jin-Woo looked at him. I don't like teams, he said. Peter nodded fast. Fair. Jin-Woo continued. But I will answer when the door knocks, he said. Peter frowned. Door knocks? Jin-Woo looked at the dark sky, then back to the city. Gates, he said. Threats. Things that think this world is easy. Peter's voice got quieter. So you're a guardian? Jin-Woo didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He just said, someone has to stand where it's quiet. Peter looked out over the city lights. He thought about how many people down there would never know how close the world had come to tearing open. He thought about how many times he had saved someone who would never know his name. He understood that kind of loneliness. Peter stood up and pulled his mask halfway on, then stopped. He held out his hand awkwardly. Not a hero handshake, just a simple one. Jin-Woo looked at it for a moment. Then he took it. His grip was firm, controlled, like a soldier's. Peter smiled, relieved. Okay, Peter said. Cool. So if you ever need to talk or whatever, we have pizza. Jin-Woo blinked. I don't eat, he said, meaning his shadows. Peter waved a hand. Not the shadows, he said. You. Humans. It's a thing we do. It helps. Jin-Woo looked at him like he was trying to understand why food could be a strategy. Then he said quietly, maybe. Behind him, the shadow soldier that had tried the peace sign popped up again, more carefully this time, and held up a small cardboard box it had somehow acquired. It was closed. It looked like a pizza box. Peter stared. Where did you... The soldier held it out proudly like it had completed a mission. Peter burst into a laugh that he couldn't stop. Jin-Woo looked back at the soldier, then at the box. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes softened in a way Peter hadn't seen before. The city wind moved around them. No gates opened, no cracks formed. Just a quiet rooftop, a tired hunter, and a world that kept spinning. Jin-Woo looked out at the skyline one more time and spoke so softly Peter almost missed it. Power is heavy, Jin-Woo said, but it doesn't have to be cruel. And for the first time since Jin-Woo arrived, the night felt like it belonged to the living again.